Welcome to Joe Biden's America. Take a look at this disturbing surveillance video out of LA. This is a Jewish father of 6 on his way to synagogue, running for his life. 2 cars sped toward him. They appear to be flying Palestinian flags.
They meant to get him, and they were not saying any racial slurs. They said Allah Akbar, which we know very well, unfortunately, means they would like to commit a terrorist attack, hurt someone, kill someone.
Now, the recent spate of vicious attacks against Jewish Americans shouldn't surprise anyone. The fact is, anti-Semitism has been comfortably housed inside the Black Lives Matter movement. And just like attacks against police officers are tolerated and even celebrated by BLM activists, so are attacks against Jews. It's disgusting. It has the Biden administration in a bind of its own making. The Democrats right now are obsessing on a commission to investigate that 2.5-hour Capitol riot on January 6th, but they're turning a blind eye to the explosion of crime on the streets of America. And they simply refuse to confront the anti-Semitic cross-currents in both the BLM and the critical race theory crowd. So by refusing to renounce the far left's push to defund the police and instead choosing to target police practices, the Biden DOJ has made life in America more dangerous for everyone. And by refusing to call out the vile anti-Jewish sentiments expressed by their own allies, Democrats have made America far more dangerous for Jews. The origin of the thuggish tactics of the emboldened anti-Semites tracked the tactics of BLM thugs last summer. This was the scene Tuesday in West LA, as described by an eyewitness. A large caravan of people waving Palestinian flags as they drove through several neighborhoods. Members of the caravan who approached the restaurant began throwing bottles at diners outside and using anti-Semitic slurs. It was a hate crime, the witness told CBS LA. It was prepared. They came to fight with Jewish people. Another witness told the station that dozens of men ran from the caravan toward the restaurant asking, "Who's Jewish?" and using anti-Semitic slurs. It was a hate crime, the witness told CBS LA. It was prepared. They came to fight with Jewish people. Another witness told the station that dozens of men ran from the caravan toward the restaurant asking, "Who's Jewish?" Now, does that remind you of anything?
You have a gentleman named Byron Henry in your party? Your father represents the American Navy in Berlin? This message is forwarded to you via our foreign minister. Your party's passports, may I have them, please?
I'm reluctant to surrender them for obvious reasons.
I assure you it's quite routine. And they will be returned to you in Königsberg. Thank you. Now your roster, please. You have no Negroes in your party? How many Jews?
We make no record of religious affiliation.
But you do have Jews.
Even if there were Jews in this party, I would have to decline to answer. My government's policy is one of absolute equality of treatment.
Who are these Jews, please?
I just don't know if there are any Jews.
My government's policy is simply to maintain separate record for Jews.
I wasn't interested, you see, so I never asked.
I'm instructed to separate out the Jews.
Now form a double line, please, alphabetically. No.
But you are in the custody of the Wehrmacht, in a combat zone, under strict martial law. I call this to your attention.
For your purposes, you can assume that we're all Jews.
Now, just a minute. What on earth do you mean by that? I'm certainly not a Jew, and I don't want to be classified or treated as
We'll
one.
all be treated alike, Clara, that's all. Please cooperate.
Oh, no. No, you don't. Nobody's putting me down for any Jew. Sorry, Leslie, I'm just not buying it.
What is your name, madam?
Clara Young, Chicago, Illinois. And I'm not Jewish, you can be damn sure of that.
Would you be kind enough to point out the Jews in your party?
No, thank you, mister. That's your business, not mine.
What is your name?
Tom Stanley.
Now, you know your party cannot board this train before I carry out my orders. You seem to understand this matter much better than your chargé. Who are the Jews here?
Well, I tell you, friend, I'd like to cooperate. I really would. But as far as I know, there's not a one. Not in this party.
You, step forward.
Stay where you are. I would like your name and rank. And I warn you, if this continues, it will result in a written protest from my government.
There is no reason to protest. The officials of the other governments are cooperating. What is your name?
Hartley. Mark Hartley.
Hartley. I see. And under what name were you born?
Hartley.
Oh, really? And what were your parents?
Americans?
Jews.
No. Americans.
Mr. Hartley has been to church with me every Sunday in Warsaw. He's a Methodist, the same as me.
I can vouch for that. I conducted the services. Mark is a devout Christian.
I'm sure that a little physical examination
I
would
would
show...
report that as a personal violence. In America, circumcision at birth is routine.
I'm circumcised.
So am I.
Vergeuden Sie keine Zeit mehr. Vergeuden Sie keine Zeit. Durchsuchen Sie den Koffer.
Now, hold it, sir. This is not a customs point. There is no reason to search personal belongings.
Also, kein einziger Jude unter all den Amerikanern, ne? Ja, könnte ja sein. Jeder Jude, der im Dienstsommer nach Warschau kommt, muss verrückt sein. Kommen Sie! Sonst fährt der Zug noch mit Verspätung ab.
What are you staring at?
You are very pretty.
Thank you.
Rather dark. Your ancestry?
Italian.
Your name?
Mona Lisa.
I see. Step forward.
She's my fiancée. Leave her alone.
Joachim! Kommen Sie schon! Lassen Sie das! Verdammt noch einmal! Very well. You love your Jews. Take them.
Achtung, Achtung! Alle Juden sollen sich sofort in den Speisesaal begeben. Meine Damen und Herren, Sie werden gebeten, in den Zug auf Bahnsteig 7 einzusteigen. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine gute Reise.
All right, gather all your possessions and we can board the train now. Make sure you have everything and keep a hold of the children. Let's proceed fresh route.
Instant replay.
You have no Negroes in your party? How many Jews?
So by refusing to renounce the far left's push to defund the police and instead choosing to target police practices, the Biden DOJ has made life in America more dangerous for everyone. And by refusing to call out the vile anti-Jewish sentiments expressed by their own allies, Democrats have made America far more dangerous for Jews. The origin of the thuggish tactics of the emboldened anti-Semites tracked the tactics of BLM thugs last summer. This was the scene Tuesday in West LA, as described by an eyewitness. A large caravan of people waving Palestinian flags as they drove through several neighborhoods. Members of the caravan who approached the restaurant began throwing bottles at diners outside and using anti-Semitic slurs. It was a hate crime, the witness told CBS LA. It was prepared. They came to fight with Jewish people. Another witness told the station that dozens of men ran from the caravan toward the restaurant asking, "Who's Jewish?" Now, does that remind you of anything? Now, in both cases, these intimidation tactics go unpunished, as liberal wokesters cower in fear. And the agitators, they feel empowered because they have the cover of members of Congress, such as, of course, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Cori Bush.
Palestinians know what state violence, militarized policing, and occupation of their communities look like. And they've lived that reality of having to go through checkpoints while trying to live their lives. They know this reality and the reality of so much more. So when heavily militarized police forces showed up in Ferguson in 2014, Bassam and so many others of our St. Louis Palestinian community, our Palestinian siblings showed up too.
And the co-founder of the Boycott, Divest, and Sanctions movement also smears Israel with that same systemic racism analogy that BLM uses against America.
When apartheid ended in South Africa, did that end the existence of South Africans? No, it just ended an unjust, oppressive system. When Jim Crow ended in the United States South, did that end the existence of Alabama? No, it ended a very racist, institutionalized racist system. That's exactly what we're calling for.
And in tandem with the racial grievance industry in the U.S., anti-Jewish forces use selective viral video clips in an attempt to indoctrinate the next generation.
The images that people are seeing on social media, they cannot unsee. And I think that you have changes that are going on. Things like the Tulsa riots, things like Black Lives Matter, are seen as connected by a very large number of people, not just in the Democratic Party, but particularly young people on campuses, young people all over the country.
On campuses. Well, meanwhile, in tweets, anti-Semite Ilhan Omar accused Israel of running an apartheid state and engaging in terrorism, and then demanded that Israel answer for war crimes. And last week, her fellow squad member, Rashida Tlaib, revealed how BLM radicalism does share common cause with the anti-Israel movement.
Our freedom is interconnected with Black, brown, indigenous, and it's connected. What they are doing to the Palestinian people is what they continue to do to our Black brothers and sisters here. This is how you grow this movement. This is how you spread the truth.
In fact, the co-founder of BLM cites her trip to Palestine as a key influence.
We went on a solidarity trip, and I think it transformed all of us. It transformed how we understood the Palestinian struggle, but also how we understood it in relationship to Black people's struggle inside the U.S. And I think it was a profound moment of clarity. I think that's been incredibly powerful for our movement.
The fact is, Israel has been America's most loyal ally in the Middle East since its founding. During Trump's first term, progress toward peace was being made slowly but surely with those Abraham Accords. But President Biden is well on his way to blowing all of it by sidling up to the Marxist Black Lives Matter movement, by embracing the use of this poisonous critical race theory in schools, and by refusing to tackle the social pathologies at the heart of urban crime. Biden has not only made America more divided and dangerous, he spawned a terrifying wave of anti-Semitic attacks that could quickly spiral out of control. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here.
Tonight at 5 o'clock, witnesses called it a hate crime. Palestinian supporters allegedly attacking Jewish diners in Beverly Grove. Good evening. I'm Jeff Vaughn.
And I'm Pat Harvey. And some are saying the fighting in the streets of Jerusalem and Gaza has now spilled over to our streets. CBS 2's Chris Holmstrom is live in Beverly Grove where that attack happened. Chris?
Pat and Jeff, it is just awful what happened. A group of Jewish people were out here eating on this sidewalk when out of nowhere they were attacked, likely because they were Jewish. And as we just mentioned, it was all caught on camera, but I want to warn you, this video could be tough to watch. An outrageous hate crime caught on camera in Beverly Grove. You can see pro-Palestinian protesters drive by in a caravan. Then they stopped, hopped out of their vehicles, and chaos ensued. I spoke to one of the men who was attacked. He wanted to remain anonymous, but tells me he's Armenian and was eating with his Jewish friends.
It was a hate crime. They was prepared. They came to fight with Jewish people.
The man says about 30 people got out of their vehicles and started asking who's Jewish, along with anti-Semitic slurs.
Then I see my friend on the floor. They were hitting his head. They were kicking his head. And then I decided I have to do something to remove him from there because they were gonna hit him like non-stop.
That's when he picked up this post to try to get them to leave, but then they just threw him up against this SUV and started beating him. Eventually, they took off, and the man was taken to the hospital with cuts and bruises. At the same time, the LAPD is looking over this video. It shows an Orthodox Jewish man being chased by a caravan of people waving Palestinian flags. A friend says this happened on Monday night, and the man ran into a synagogue for safety. LA City Councilman Paul Koretz is speaking out. He says hate crimes against the Jewish community have gone up because of the conflict in the Middle East.
I'm outraged and I strongly condemn the anti-Semitic incidents.
Since the incident, authorities have been patrolling the area.
All these microaggressions that people have towards Jewish people or towards Muslim Palestinians, it's just incredibly hurtful.
And back out here live, I reached out to the LAPD. They tell me this is still an active investigation, and so far, no arrests have been made. Reporting live from Beverly Grove, I'm Chris Holmstrom, CBS 2 News.
Chris, thank you.
From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Tisha Bader.
I'm Tisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Monday, May the 24th, 2021. An IDF soldier and an Israeli civilian were moderately injured in a terror attack today in Jerusalem. A Palestinian terrorist approached the light rail station near the national headquarters of the Israel police in the capital today, pulled out a knife and stabbed the two men. Border police officers at the scene responded, shooting and killing the terrorist. Both victims were taken to Hadassah Hospital for treatment. Israel's President Reuven Rivlin vowed, "We will not allow terrorism to raise its despicable head and will fight it without compromise." And with the ceasefire that was reached Thursday and took effect Friday between Israel and Palestinian terror group Hamas in Gaza, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for Israel and the region today. Blinken tweeted at the request of President Biden, "I am traveling to Jerusalem, Ramallah, Cairo, and Amman to meet with the parties to support their efforts to solidify a ceasefire." The United States has engaged, he said, in intensive diplomacy to bring an end to the hostilities and reduce tensions. And a statement from the president released by the White House read that during his trip, Blinken will meet with Israeli leaders about our ironclad commitment to Israel's security. Also rebuilding ties, Biden said, with the Palestinian people, including on the coordinated international effort to ensure immediate assistance reaches Gaza in a way that benefits the people there and not Hamas, and on reducing the risk of further conflict in the coming months. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked President Biden on Friday for the support of Israel.
I want to thank President Joe Biden, a friend of many years, who stood by Israel throughout this conflict. He expressed clearly, unreservedly, America's support for Israel's right of self-defense.
Also thanking Biden for offering to help replenish Israel's stocks of missile interceptors. Netanyahu is set to meet with Secretary of State Blinken tomorrow morning. And the president also addressed the alarming rise in anti-Semitic attacks in the United States, including several brazen incidents this past Thursday. Despite the announcement of a ceasefire reached between Israel and Hamas, demonstrations in the Times Square area of New York City turned violent, and pro-Palestinians could be seen waving Palestinian flags while hurling verbal anti-Semitic abuse, also throwing glass bottles and even setting off a firecracker targeting Jews. And a Jewish man was severely beaten in the middle of the street near Times Square. 29-year-old Joseph Borgen was heading to a pro-Israel rally wearing a kippah. He told News 4 New York that soon after he emerged from the subway station, he was quickly surrounded by a group of Palestinians and then attacked.
They proceeded to, obviously assault me, beat me, kick me, punch me, hit me with crutches, hit me with like flagpoles.
The NYPD has arrested one suspect and is still searching for 4 others. Its hate crimes task force is investigating the incidents. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris spoke out against these incidents today, where Biden said the recent attacks on the Jewish community are despicable and they must stop. Tweeting, "I condemn this hateful behavior at home and abroad. It's up to all of us to give hate no safe harbor." Vice President Harris tweeted, "The surge in anti-Semitic attacks against the Jewish community in the U.S. and around the world is despicable. It must be called out, condemned, and stopped. As a country, we must stand united against hate of any kind." And Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi called the recent spike horrific, heartbreaking, and demanding of action. She wrote, "Anti-Semitism cannot be tolerated. We must come together as Americans to condemn and combat this appalling bigotry and hatred." And Jewish organizations expressed their horror at the recent spate of violent attacks. And rallies of support were held across the country against anti-Semitism and against terror this weekend, including Sunday at Ground Zero in New York City, led by the Israeli-American Council, whose co-founder Shoham Nicolet said, "Despite the ceasefire in Israel, we've seen a wave of unprecedented attacks on Jews and rise in anti-Semitic hatred here in the U.S. That's why thousands of us mobilized today," he said, "across this great nation to speak out strongly and stand with our families here and in Israel." Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS.